time for that story we've been promising you all evening, in fact, for the last week. Now, it's been 5 years since oil was discovered in Turkana. So where are we now? Tonight, Wells of Dillema, a special feature by Dorcas Wangira, takes us to the south of Turkana and explores the issues surrounding the black gold of Turkana. We want to leave you now with that feature. Please do remember to continue tweeting in your thoughts and your feedback. The hashtag is Wells of Dillema, at KTN News, at D Wangira, that's at DE Wangira. So please do keep your thoughts coming in on that story. I will leave you with that now.
This is the well from Gamia well in the Turkana basin. Yes. Right. In fact, there are 2 bottles which brought the samples. Right.
It is, however, the beginning of a long journey.
Hundreds of Turkana residents held demonstrations in oil drilling camps in the area. They protested against the operations of Tallow Oil Company.
It made an oil discovery in Kerio Valley Basin, which could mean opening up a second oil basin for development.
Stakeholders wote wa mafuta walielewana ugawaji wa rasilimali ya mafuta.
Mtu akisimama hapa aseme Uhuru ako na haja na mafuta ya wengine, ashindwe.
In South Lokichar, even the smallest of flames can become fierce fires. This may be a simple community skit, but sometimes art imitates life. Lucas Amuron is known as Simba Lokichar, the lion of Lokichar. Whenever the local radio station is discussing the oil drilling in Turkana, Amuron is never shy to share his strong opinions. But the local radio has since been shut down. The community no longer has a platform to air their concerns.
Angalia maneno ya elimu, hospitali, barabara, maji. Ile dadili tulikuwa naye ndio bado tulikuwa naye. Hiyo wakijana bile wako hivi inangoje hiyo mafuta. Wakunywe mafuta na kina babu.
Tallow Oil and its partner, Africa Oil Corporation, licensed to carry out exploration, report that the volume of oil available in the South Lokichar Basin is even higher than the previously assumed 750 million barrels. It could get to the 1 billion mark. There is enough oil to support an independent pipeline, enough for a pilot oil production scheme known as the Ali Oil Pilot Scheme. The earliest possible dates for fast exports through a pipeline is 2021. But if depressed oil prices continue, the process could be further delayed.
We have been working very closely with the government to define roles and responsibilities. So number one, the oil belongs to the government. The government has requested us to support with the transportation of the oil, but whose title to oil is very clearly known.
Ali Oil is seen as an interim measure that would enable Kenya to achieve her first oil exports. The plan is to move the Turkana waxy crude by truck to Eldoret, then to the retrofitted refinery in Mombasa by train. The base plan is for the production and export of 2,000 barrels of oil per day.
Tallow have floated a tender for the transportation, and we've said at least 30% of that transport must be done by local communities. This is part of government's effort for local content.
Last August, Tallow attempted tracking trials. 2 trucks were to initially ferry the oil in isotainers to Mombasa.
Mafuta bado tunasimamisha kwa sababu tulipata ripoti kwa rais anasema ile pesa napewa Turkana ni mingi.
Wakati wajumbe walipitisha ya kwamba 10% wapewe community ya Turkana.
Locals were adamant that the oil would not leave until issues were resolved. Will this round of the Ali Oil Pilot Scheme be successful? Before the oil was discovered, Nangiro Naut cared only for his family and his nomad way of life in Lomokamar village south of Turkana. The block 10BB is close to his home, but he has never seen oil. Many of his goats have been dying since last year. Even though the county is experiencing a biting drought, Naut is convinced that environmental changes from oil drilling is killing his animals.
Akakuja hapo mbuzi chemical kaingia kwa nyasi, mbuzi itiona.
Nangiro is not the only one noticing this peculiar trend. In the past year, there have been protests. Herdsmen who had also lost their goats at the Ngamia 10 and Agete well sites were also demanding compensation from tallow oil.
Hiyo mafuta wakati alianza hapa ameharibu vitu mingi sana hapa. Ameua manyama, amemaliza nini watu anakuna na nini.
There have been more restrictions since the discovery of oil on community land. Most of it is necessary. Toxic waste in mud cuttings and in the well pads is dangerous. Nangiro won't rest easy. He has been to tallow oil seeking answers and compensation. He isn't satisfied.
There were some well pads that tallow discovered there was no oil, and maybe oil wasn't commercial. So the company decided to abandon it. And when it's supposed to be, when the well is abandoned, the company that is doing that is supposed to restore the land to its original state.
Before they came, our trees were nice. Everywhere, at least, it was green. The vegetation, it was green. But now, there are changes.
In the area of environment as well, we just saw one tree nursery that we are experimenting on to make sure that we reforest the areas that we may have impacted.
The loss of a landscape could be foreseen. An environmental social impact assessment was crucial before the full-field development.
We are working on the front-end engineering and design for the pipeline and the environmental social impact assessment study.
But at this early stage of pre-development, how valid are the emerging fears of environmental issues?
These are areas which can cause, implication, because as they drill, get both oil and gas. So when you get both oil and gas, what it means, if you want oil, then you have to mount flares. And there have been evidence that we can advocacy where the gas has been flared. And if we have a lot of gas flares, then we have pollution over the environment, and that's why we have global warming gases going up. And maybe that is one of the reasons why those people are complaining that they are coughing or they have nose because of the gas and the gas flaring. So that and oil, it has its own issues in terms of the trading point of view, the transportation point of view, and the storage point of view, and the entire access of certain areas by the communities of Turkana.
Tallow, together with the Ministry of Petroleum and Energy, we've been doing traditional ways of reporting and telling the public to bring hearings. They publish it in the newspaper, nobody sees it. They give a copy to the DC, how many people go to the DC to look at it? Or our offices. So we must find avenues where we take these environmental reports. Those who are sanctioning it, take it to the people where everyone is worried about. How will I be tendering my goods here while oil is coming out and such a view? Do we need to be moved? Do we need to continue being here?
Every place of this land is being inhabited by people. If you, for example, you tell me, move, where will I move?
Environmental concerns simmer among the communities. The Kenya Civil Society platform on oil and gas is raising the red flag on another issue, the money.
Once oil starts moving, it's very difficult. From our analysis, it's not useful. It's actually a distraction from the full-field development. There's no justification, no economic justification for actually undertaking the scheme. And elsewhere where such schemes have been tried, including Uganda, they've actually abandoned them once they realized that it made no economic sense to go ahead with the schemes.
We are not in the early oil pilot scheme for the economics of it. We are in this as a lesson and as a test. The big prize will come when we develop the full field, and this place should look a lot more different.
When the trucks depart, the proceeds returning will be less. But there are more pressing concerns. Are the people sitting where the oil is comfortable? Revenue sharing is already threatening to be a contentious issue, one that's slowly becoming a heavy bargaining chip.
Stakeholders wote wa mafuta walielewana ugawaji wa rasilimali ya mafuta, na hii ndio bunge ilipitisha na mkataba ukaja kwako kuweka sahihi. Pingamizi yetu ni upunguzaji ya percentage.
Mtu akisimama hapa aseme Uhuru akona haja na mafuta ya wengine, ashindwe.
Ikatokea ile mambo ati rais amesema tuchukue 10%. Sasa hiyo kitu ilikera Waturkana yote, sio moja, sio gavana, sio bunge ya hapa, inakera yote.
It's a game of numbers. The stakes are high. Previously and in principle, upstream petroleum were governed by the Petroleum Exploration and Production Act, Chapter 308 of the laws of Kenya, which has been subject to amendments. The bill also spells out specific areas where the beneficiary communities can use the returns from the mineral wealth. Education, health, water and roads are examples. The communities also have to plan a budget on how they plan to spend the money. Further amendments to the bill in 2015 was the division of petroleum profits in the share of 75% for the national government, 20% for the county government, and 5% for the community.
Mheshimiwa Uhuru anasema ati 10% tunachukua 5%. Kwani 75% inaenda wapi?
So when somebody says 5% of what? You know, is it 5? You know, you could say 5-10%, but if it's of very little revenue, then it's not significant. So people are arguing about the percentages, but no one is looking at what are the values of those percentages. And for us, it's critical that the contracts come out so that we can do that analysis to know what these percentages mean.
The Petroleum Bill of 2016, also backed by multi-stakeholders, provided that communities get a share of 10% from the national government's share in a ratio of 80% for the national government. But the President of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, declined to assent to the bill. In rejecting the bill, President Kenyatta proposed drastic changes to the benefits and sharing formula that Parliament had proposed. The community's share fell back to 5%, not more than a quarter of the county's share. In his memorandum, Kenyatta stated that the county had no capacity to absorb higher proceeds.
Sheria ile ambayo ililetwa na ikapitishwa na bunge, mimi nikiwa rais ndio nilikataa kuweka sahihi, nikairudisha bunge na tukawaambia angalieni hiyo mambo ya vile hiyo rasilimali itakawa kuhakikisha kwamba kila mtu ako na haki yake properly.
Mimi napitisha sheria, ni bunge. Mimi ni kuweka naweka kidole. Alafu mjinga anakuja kusema hapa ati mimi nafanya mambo ya hiyo siwezi. Na msiwe watu ambao mtasikia porojo. Mkisikia mambo ya porojo, sio Uhuru atapotea, ni nyinyi mtapotea.
Basically saying we have no capacity to manage huge amounts of money. I think for us, we viewed that as an abuse.
But what exactly is absorptive capacity? Do we have a formula to calculate it?
There is no formula. You can look at the previous, how much they're spending now, and compare that, and you can say, okay, if they're unable to absorb $12 billion now, would they be able to absorb 24 billion? But again, it's a factor of capacity. So if you increase that revenue, then you increase the capacity to spend, and increase the planning as well on that spending to make sure that the money actually goes to the right areas.
In the year 2016-2017, Turkana County received 11 billion from the Equitable Fund. This was only second to Nairobi, which received 15 billion. Data from the International Budget Partnerships and PesaCheck.org say since its inception, Turkana County has received 39 billion from the Equitable Share and also from conditional grants. The National Treasury says Turkana has received 32 billion from what was allocated. The Controller of Budget in the year 2013-2014 noted that there were counties that had very low absorption of revenue given to them. Turkana was one of them. In the following years, Turkana County was noted to spend more on development than on recurrent expenditures. So, does the president's argument hold any water?
Can they absorb this money if used correctly? Yes, because the needs are equally huge. Needs is definitely one aspect of it, but then you need to build a capacity for them to be able to absorb it, right? Because even as we speak, a lot of even the bigger counties don't have the absorptive capacity, and that's largely due to lack of capacity. They don't have big enough procurement departments that are able to observe the laws while spending the money.
We were prepared to come and legislate further in the county on how the community share of the oil revenue, which was 10%, is going to be managed and it is going to be dispersed. We were also to legislate how the county government, the county revenue is going to be managed, and now it's to be dispersed. Even putting in considerations of establishing a county future fund, where this money will be put in, and then we only utilize what our absorption capacity can allow us.
The oil that was discovered in Turkana does not just belong to the people of Turkana. It is also a national resource. Back here in the capital, Nairobi, and in other parts of the country, expectations are high. Cheaper pump prices, cheaper cost of goods from a lowered cost of production, as well as the status of being an oil-producing country. However, the oil itself could either be a blessing or a curse. According to the Kenya Civil Society Platform on Oil and Gas 2016 potential Turkana revenue projections of 2022, using the revenues of 75%, 20% and 5%, and at the price of $45 on the lower end, if the total revenue is 28 billion shillings, the national government gets 21 billion, the county government gets 6 billion, and the community gets 1 billion.
We have raised this matter. We have raised it, we have talked about it on the political front, we have brought it to the attention of the authorities that are concerned, and we have specifically asked the president to reverse that memorandum and leave what was budgeted for. If that will be difficult, then a legal recourse will not be avoided.
Uru, nakamwambia kama nataka mafuta, kama nataka Turkana, patia kitu yake, alafu nabaki hapa. Kama nachukua mafuta kabla Turkana iko njaa, sitaki.
Some of the strategies in the early oil pilot scheme, however, raising eyebrows. Turkana's infrastructure is wanting. Why track and rail when you can pipeline?
We're putting in the infrastructure for the new roads, as you've seen, so that we can allow for road transport. Our target has always been to ship it by June. So whether we start shipping it in April or we start shipping it in May, the aim is just to get it there.
All seems set, it's simple, it's straightforward, it will happen.
But the Kenya Civil Society Platform on Oil and Gas is still not convinced.
If they find that our oil requires more work or more investment, then that can stall it. Right? Kenyan oil is very waxy, so at the moment they assume that they'll just be able to produce, that's why they're producing a very low level, 2,000 barrels of oil a day.
The early oil pilot scheme is slated for June, 2 months ahead of the general election. At the peak of political campaigns, many foresee risk.
Well, geology doesn't wait for elections. So if these people have, Talo have just spent $1.5 billion drilling holes in the ground, finding oil. Should we tell them, well, we have a political event going on in August, why don't you leave, come back at the end of August, and then we'll see how it goes.
The National Cohesion and Integration Commission, the NCIC, identified 19 counties at the risk of violence in 2017. Of the 19, 6 of the counties lie on the proposed early oil route, including Turkana, Pokot, and Uasin Gishu. Why would the government allow the oil scheme to continue during this period, even with these imminent threats? Health and safety concerns in the track and rail process also arise.
For the communities, because they have not had such kind of incidences before the coming of Talo, then they can attribute whatever is happening to, the Talo activities. But from the scientific point of view, the people's perception have also to be tested, because if people are dying or cows are dying, then what it means, there should be some kind of verification for that to say whether or not, whatever the community is saying is true.
Residents like Nangiru are relentless in pursuing compensation from Talo. He has very scanty evidence to back his claim, but nothing will convince him otherwise. The environmental concerns of people at the margins like him at this early stage are not attracting enough attention, drowned by more pressing issues of revenue. John Baraka believes that it will take more community-based organizations to empower the people of Turkana at the margins.
When you go to them on the ground, you ask them, what measures have you taken about this problem? You will hear that this issue, they have faced it for so long. They have reported even to the provincial administration on the ground. They have reported to the oil company, but there are no measures taken by these entities. So they say that, so even if we report, nothing will take place. We better keep quiet.
On an environment, we need to increase the capacity of our regulators. We just don't have the capacity to regulate the new oil sector.
Better to live than have oil. Because in the future, we are going to lose people here and animals. And this place will remain no man's land.
The drama at Lokichara Market Square climaxes with the desired reality. Sarah Nomoit plays the role of the oil company and government spokesperson, assuring the community that their issues will be heard.
Na sisi naye tumesema kwa sababu sisi ndio tuna mafuta ikaondoka, sisi ndio tunabaki kilinda mafuta, na sisi ndio takuja kuumia, sio yeye na Wakenya wengine, ni sisi wa Turkana ndio taumia.
Turkana, the cradle of mankind, has weathered the worst of times, severe drought, insecurity and poverty of endemic levels. The discovery of oil beneath the soil is arguably the last best hope to reverse its history. Dorcas Wangira, KTN News, Turkana County.